Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of season 3 of the Culture Core podcast. I'm joined by Joe, and this month we're just gonna be taking a political compass test and going over some news. So, usual stuff. So
Oh
I've been
boy.
waiting on, yeah, I've been waiting on my Blue Yeti microphone to come back in. Because I sent it in like a month ago. I don't know if you remember. I
Oh yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
that
I remember.
there was like some white noise issues and I couldn't use it at all. So I called him like 2 days ago, and I'm like, "Hey, I sent my mic in like 3 weeks ago. I'm kind of wondering on the status of it." And he's like, "Oh, I'll expedite it, and you'll get an email in a second." And I'm like, "Okay." And I never got an email, and I'm like, this is very reassuring."
Suspicious.
Yeah. So I have a mic stand and a pop filter, but I currently cannot use either and feel like a pro at this, because my microphone is still being
That
shipped.
sucks.
So yeah, maybe someday this show will have consistently quality audio, but until that day, we'll just make do. So
Oh well. It'll work.
yep. It's been pretty shitty out today where I am. We had ice in the morning. I had to like scrape a solid half
Oh
inch of
no, you
ice
had
off my windshield
ice.
for like the third time this week. Yeah, you're in Minnesota, but ice is a different animal. It's a very
No, I'm fucking
specific
with you.
animal.
Yeah, I know, I'm fucking with you.
Do you guys have any
He's
snow?
nice. Oh yeah, we've got like 15 inches.
That's probably pretty typical.
Yeah, it's fucking Minnesota, man.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. You should just grow a beard. You
Gotta
know,
love it.
keep your face warm. Can you grow a beard?
Yeah, I can grow a beard. I just choose not to.
Fair enough. If I could grow facial hair, I would grow a solid goatee,
That makes
but I
sense.
can't. I
Yeah,
can't.
you could
I
probably wear it
can't.
pretty nicely. Oh,
Yeah, at this point. So,
bad.
well, all right. I guess we can just jump right into our political compass
Oh boy.
test. If my gotta add a window. I know you've already
Usually.
taken it. You've taken
Yeah,
this Spekr political compass test. Um,
basically, yeah.
and so where did you fall on it?
For left quadrant, I forget the label that they gave me, but basically, if it's on a scale from -10 to 10 for left right, and -10 to 10 to for
Up,
authoritarian
down.
libertarian, -5
So
and
it's the
5.
same it's the same quadrant for the old political compass
Yeah,
test, just different questions. It sounds like.
basically, and more of them.
Right. Um, Now we've taken political compass tests in the past. I think we've been taking them since like 2010 or something. Uh,
Oh
so
yeah,
we could like go through and look at our old ones at some point maybe. But I remember I fell in the lower left quadrant, and I'm more towards the middle, sort of, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, I remember a lot of the people that I knew that took it at the time kind of fell in the same area.
yeah.
Um,
And now it's all changed.
you used to be in the bottom right, which is interesting.
I know that's so
What
funny to me in retrospect.
wasn't isn't that like libertarian fedora tipping
It
like
basically
area?
was. And then I'm like, science and Marxist-Leninism.
Because why not?
Basically, yeah.
So, but yeah, one other test that we took was a Pew Research political compass test. It was only 17 questions, and
Yeah.
it was on a continuum, not a quadrant chart. Uh, Kind of more
Yeah.
reflective of like the American political system with like Democratic, Republican.
be like, are
I
you a
know that you
Democrat or are you a
fell
Republican? Which, yeah, I was
basically, yeah.
solid liberal, like farthest left one.
On that one, it classified me as a market skeptic Republican. I have no idea what that actually means. Uh,
So,
I'm skeptical of the market and think that it should be slightly regulated. I'm assuming,
yeah,
because I
basically what
agreed
I
with
got from that
conclusions like
one
that.
was market skeptical Republicans have like right-leaning social values, but like left-leaning economics.
Hmm.
I know that's what I got from it.
Yeah, they had a bunch of statistics up. I just didn't take the time to read through most of them. I just kind of looked at the chart, and I looked where it put me in the graph of all of those kinds of people, and it said you're like 10% of the population or something. But I didn't look too much further. But anyway, now to take this Spekr, which is it's like a Likert scale, so it's a 0 to 5. It looks like for approval or disapproval for each question. And the downside to this test
Basically,
is
yeah.
that you can see your dot move around. And like I mentioned before the show, I tried getting a program to like block it, but I think we're just gonna try and deal with it. So
Yeah, yeah. The one downside of it all.
first question: each individual enjoys bodily autonomy and have rights that no other individual or group may violate. I strongly agree with that. All right, next.
Rules.
Individuals have the freedom to decide what they knowingly and voluntarily consume. I also strongly agree with that. Nutrition labels, folks, they matter. Slavery is acceptable in certain circumstances, such as punishment for a crime. No. Strongly disagree.
Yep, that's good.
Freedom of expression should be unhindered by government regardless of the content. Our first curveball. Um,
Yeah, this is where it gets tricky.
freedom of expression should be unhindered. I tend to agree with that, but not 100%. So I'm going to put a 2, or I guess a middle between neutral and fully agree. Hate
Makes
speech should be
sense.
banned. Uh, see the problem with this one is like how does the government define hate speech? Because the government can then say like, oh, you're disagreeing with us, hate speech,
Yeah,
and it's
that's
like,
where it gets awful.
no, I'm just having my own opinion. So I'm gonna have to say, um, I understand like why we would not want to have like Nazis say what they're gonna say, but I'm gonna strongly disagree with this one because free marketplace of ideas, and that is what
Yeah,
that's what I believe in. So, control of communications by government is
yep.
necessary so as to prevent the spread of ideas that may undermine the stability of the nation. Uh, disagree, but not. Uh, I mean, they are like PBS is a government-controlled media station, but it's not like they're pushing a narrative per se. You know,
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. It's
so
literally just like interpret it as subjectively as you like.
provision of the internet should be socialized and made available free of charge. I mean, the internet is basically information and knowledge, and the more people have, the better.
Ooh.
Um, so I'm gonna agree. People should be free to engage or abstain from religious activities that do not violate the rights of others. Yes. Blasphemy laws should be reinstated. Fuck no.
Yeah.
um, government action should neither aid nor attack any religion. Strongly agree. Religious organizations should not be exempt from taxation. Agree. They should not be exempt. See, the thing about that question is that people view religious organizations as like part of the community, which they are.
Yeah.
Um,
The question that you get with
but
that is like, oh, okay, so like, how should the government treat them? And that's where it's like,
basically,
oh shit.
that's the thing though, is that with pools of money, unless they explicitly say that they're not going to use it in a certain way, I mean, the church could use it however they want. Is the thing, and it's not regulated by the government. So if the church isn't going to play by the government's rules, then you know, then they should be taxed
Yeah,
like any other. I guess you could look at a church as a non-profit organization, which has its own tax codes and shit.
yeah,
Um,
that makes
but
sense.
do non-profit organizations get taxed?
Um, I actually don't know.
Well, for the sake of this question, oh, wait, I already passed it anyway. I already answered it. Next one. You have nothing to fear if you have nothing to hide is a valid statement. Uh, Disagree. Privacy
Huh?
matters. Government transparency is vital to ensuring accountability. Strongly agree. Strongly fucking agree. That's actually part of the news story with Greitens and Rick Gates. So,
Yeah, because it's like, what was he trying to do again? He
which
had a
one?
lot of dark money and shit.
Oh,
Greitens
like
did, because there's
offshore.
so many. That's the worst part about him. But
Rick Gates had a bunch of offshore like banking shit. He originally was gonna fight it, but then he realized how long it was gonna take, and he's like, fuck it, and he pleaded guilty.
wait,
Uh,
really? He pleaded guilty? I didn't know
yeah,
that.
yep, he
Oh
is pleading
wow, what an
guilty.
asshole.
How's that?
I mean, aside from the whole having sex with the mistress while his wife was pregnant.
Wait, Gates did that?
No, Greitens.
Oh, I was talking
Greitens was
about Rick
having sex with the
Gates.
mistress while his wife was pregnant, and
Oh
then he
yeah,
tied her up,
yeah,
took
yeah. That
naked photos
was
of her, and said, "If you tell anybody, I'll let you." So
yeah.
scummy.
I read about that. That's fucked up. I yeah. I was
He
talking
had a
about Rick Gates though.
minigun. How could Wait, what?
I was talking about Rick Gates, with the Russia investigation that is
Oh,
continuously going.
okay.
Which
Sorry, I
is
didn't hear you.
no, it's good. Um, I didn't know if something similar happened with Greitens, but anyway,
Oh yeah, no, Greitens had
government
dark money
surveillance.
too.
Oh, huh,
Well,
lovely.
a lot of money was going into his campaign, and people didn't know where it was coming from.
Oh, yeah, that's a problem because you're supposed to report that to committees, and it's
Yep.
part of the transparency that makes democracy great. Um,
Yeah, money
that's
in
part of why the
politics
New
is
York Times.
garbage.
Yeah, but that's why we have like these news agencies to like report on them so that they can have accountability. And the thing about I feel like most people on the right are all about accountability, at least for the most part. But then when it comes to shit like that, it's like cognitive dissonance overload.
Yeah,
You know.
cognitive dissonance
So
overload.
government surveillance should be expanded to combat terrorism. Disagree. People should be secure in their persons, homes, property, and communications. Uh, yeah, I agree. In order to solve crimes, the police need the power to conduct searches and seizures without consent or warrant. What? No. Sexual orientation, preference, gender, blah blah blah, have no impact on government treatment. Yep, agree. Government should have the authority to define, license, or restrict personal relationships. No. A lot of these are. I'm trying to imagine who would say yes to this. Like, huh, yeah, we should totally. Like, the only people I can think of are like evangelical Christians, basically.
Yeah, basically. Some of the authoritarian ones are
Yeah, what's the guy in the 700 Club? What's his name?
what?
What's the guy's name in the 700 Club? Evil
Oh,
dude.
Pat Robertson.
Yeah, Pat Robertson. That fucko. Probably be one of them. Consenting adults should be free to choose their own sexual practices and personal. Yep. Okay. Access to abortion should be regulated by the government. Strongly agree.
Hello?
Well, yeah, I'm here. What's up?
Oh, I hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So another minor update before we continue with this questionnaire. Um, so I bought a 100-foot Ethernet cable that hooks literally directly up to my router. So I should not have any internet issues because I'm getting direct internet.
That's
Um,
fine. It's probably my
so I'm
computer.
Well, it might be the fact that I can only transmit so many megabits at a time, and my internet's capped at like 10, so might be it
Yeah,
as
that
well.
makes sense.
Anyway, access to abortion should be regulated by the government. Um, when it says access to abortion, I guess that means they don't want private interests. I feel like this isn't a great question, like the way it's worded. Uh,
Yeah, it's too subjective.
access to abortion should be regulated by the government. I mean, it should definitely be regulated like any other industry. Um, so I guess I'll agree.
Yeah,
Okay. Criminal laws should be limited to violation of the rights of others through force or fraud.
I feel it.
Yep, I agree. No victim, no crime is a valid statement. Uh, so this would probably refer to like pirating and shit.
Mm.
I don't know. No victim, no crime is a valid statement. I'm gonna put neutral because I'm really that needs
Yeah,
context.
because that word gets really
Ban
tricky.
yeah. Um, ban medicinal and recreational drugs should remain illegal. Disagree. Police, fire, and ambulance
Yeah,
services should be
perfectly
provided by the
legit.
market. Disagree. Individuals who voluntarily assume risk of physical harm to themselves are a burden on society and behavior and should be banned. Uh, so people who want to like hurt themselves.
No, more like if somebody's doing something that's like very dangerous that, might be in a negative way shouldn't be allowed.
So it says individuals who voluntarily assume risk of physical harm to themselves. So in my mind, that's like cops, firefighters, people in the army, you know,
Maybe.
are a burden on society and should and such behavior. What behavior? So
Yeah,
that alone
like I
makes
said,
me
it's
think that
subjective.
individuals who voluntarily assume. I'm going to assume they're talking about people who want to like kill themselves or hurt themselves, but I have no idea. So I'm just going to leave that one neutral.
Okay.
Um, restitution should be paid to victims at the expense of the criminal or negligent wrongdoer. See, I don't know about that one because that one I'm going to disagree. Strongly disagree.
Okay, cool.
Rights such as due process and the presumption of innocence are relics of the past. Uh, disagree. Juries should be able to judge not just the facts of a case, but also the justice of the law. Agree.
So,
Dispute.
like, if you're in a case and you don't agree that what somebody did was illegal, you should be allowed to question that.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Prisons as they
Okie
currently
dokie.
exist should be abolished. Um, yeah, I think that we need to reinstitute rehabilitation as opposed to just prison industrial complex. So yeah. The only legitimate use of force is indifference of individual rights, life, liberty, and justly acquired property against aggression. Defense of individual rights. So yeah, if someone like attacks you, then you have the right to defend yourself. I agree. All people have the right to self-defense, and they may agree to be aided by any other individual or group. Guess I'll slightly agree. Individuals do not have the right to keep and bear arms. Disagree. Constitutional right. I know that the Amazing Atheist just had a poll. He did a poll for Shoe on Head, which
Yeah.
is like Armor Skeptic's
Yeah.
wife. I think they're fiancés at this
Beyonce.
point. Yeah.
Okay.
And the results from that one showed that most people think that we should have moderate to strict regulation for gun laws. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
But there was only like 9% of people who thought that guns should just be legal completely, and like an 11% who thought that they should just be completely banned.
The more you learn.
Do you have any opinions on?
I think that when it comes to how people talk about guns, there's a little bit of hypocrisy. Like, extensively about it when somebody shot here. Very few people care a lot when it comes to the use of weapons internationally. So, like, drug cartels will receive tons of guns from American companies, but and something that a lot of people talk about when it comes to guns. But, you know, or the fact that we sell hundreds of billions of dollars worth of weapons to right-wing dictators in developing countries. I guess I think that people should be allowed to own guns, but I probably wouldn't want the guns to be in the hands of billion-dollar companies or defense contractors that are going to use them to basically bomb the shit out of poor countries.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think what you're getting at is that it's like a wedge issue, kind of like abortion.
Oh yeah.
Except with this, okay, if you statistically looked at how many people died in school shootings versus like how many people die from like cardiac arrest, car accidents, things like that,
it's not
would
a
be
lot.
pretty. It's not a huge amount, and I think that the media blows it out of proportion for reasons. I mean, it's important. Like when big shit happens, obviously that has to be reported on, like Las Vegas and things. But I think that
Yeah.
with human psychology, like it can be perceived as a much bigger issue than it might actually be, if that makes sense.
No, I get that.
But
I
I get what I'm picking up what you're putting down in that um, maybe maybe the people should step in and be like, hey, maybe this friggin' arms manufacturer should be selling arms to both sides of both parties, both opposing parties in this conflict in a third world nation to make money. I agree with that.
One of those things where I think that there is a very legitimate problem when it comes to wanting to reduce violence in our own country. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. But I also think that given the rise of, like, neo-Nazis and shit, that, like, maybe people should have a right to defend themselves against reactionaries.
I mean, at this point, you can't go out there and freaking collect all these guns.
Yeah, it's just not feasible.
It's just not feasible, and it's just going to cause an uproar. And at this point, every time guns get mentioned, like when Obama got elected, gun sales like spiked.
It was, oh, they're going to take our guns.
Yeah, so it was an
Yeah.
opportunity for someone to make a lot of money.
And after mass shootings, there's always like a spike in firearm sales.
Yeah, yeah. I'm I don't know where that data is pulled from, but that would be interesting to look at. Uh, so I'm gonna continue down this questionnaire list. People should be prosecuted
Yeah,
for
sure, feel
exercising their
free.
right to self-defense. Um, this is another confusing question because, like, hey, if someone invades my
Yeah.
home and I shoot them, does that mean that, like, what do they mean by prosecuted? Like, convicted of a crime?
Yeah, that's where it gets stupid.
I'm just gonna like look up prosecuted to
To see
make
what
sure
they
that I'm
mean.
tracking. Yeah.
That is perfectly fair.
I'm gonna disagree with that one. So, private property owners should be free to set the rules regarding their presence of weapons on their property. Agree. Right? I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, that's what universities do.
I feel that.
Government should restrict, register, and monitor the ownership, manufacture. Yes, I agree. Respect for private property rights is fundamental to maintaining a free and prosperous society. Um, agree. Respect for private. Oh wait, I just did that one. Contracts to obtain, retain, profit from, manage, or dispose of one's private property should be regulated by the government. Uh, to a minor extent, sure. Not to a huge extent, though. Private property owners have the right to control and enjoy their property so long as their choices do not harm or infringe on the rights of others. Yep.
E.
I mean, it's their freaking property, right? I mean, I guess
For
what
now.
might be what might be tricky with that is like environmentalist points. In which case, I would be like, yeah, then they have to oblige to some environmental laws because that affects all of us.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel that.
so I'm gonna do a light agree.
That
The
makes sense.
practices of an the practices of eminent domain. Oh my gosh, the practices of eminent domain and civil asset forfeiture should be abolished. Uh, not really sure what they mean on this one.
Eminent domain is when the government can seize property to accomplish a goal. So, like, sometimes the government will buy up your house at market value in order to build a highway or something.
Okay, so like I just remember that story in China where a guy had his house built where they wanted to build a road, and he refused as long as he could, but eventually they got the house. So that would be like eminent domain.
Sort of. Like it's been a long-standing practice here.
Okay. I'm gonna say neutral just because I don't fully understand it. Uh,
That's fine.
in order to protect the poor from the rich, limits on profit, production, mandates, and controls on prices of goods and services are necessary. Um, light agree.
Makes sense.
For voluntary dealings, parties should be free to trade with who they want and on mutually agreeable terms. Yep. Private landowners do not have an incentive to maintain natural resources and as such need to be regulated by the government. Agree. Light agree. To prevent government pollution and misuse of natural resources, public land should be privatized. I don't think that would be an issue at this point, per se. It just
For
depends
which
on
one?
who's in the government, you know? To prevent government pollution and misuse
Oh
of
yeah.
natural resources, public land should be privatized. See, that's like it depends on who's where. Like, if the environmentalists are in the private sector, then I would say like yes, because that's. I mean, the bottom line here is that we need to preserve the Earth because it's the only one we freaking got, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think the government currently, how it currently is, would pollute because there would be huge problems that the populace would have. So I'm going to disagree
You'd be
slightly
surprised.
in regards to.
So,
I guess
government Superfund
the coal
sites are
issue.
run absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
What were you going to say?
Yeah, so like some government Superfund sites are basically put them in places that they have no business in being.
What do you mean?
And it's like, I don't think it's reasonable to say that it's done like out of intentional malice. It's probably more just people being idiots about things that will affect like minorities and shit. Like, still.
Can you like say an example? Because I'm still kind of trying to grasp what you're saying about.
So, like,
Um,
in Bridgeton, Missouri, there's garbage fire that's 1,000 feet from a nuclear waste site.
oh, so that's
Yeah,
uh, government pollution and misuse of natural resources, you'd say.
basically. But, like, personally, I think that, yeah, no, like, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be better for, like, central planning to take care of pollution stuff than companies because, well, actually, I'd say 10 times out of 10, but um, isn't a profit motive when it comes to companies or when it comes to government and doing that stuff. And so you're less
True.
likely to see intentional environmental degradation.
Yep. So I put a light disagree with that, partially because of the reason you just cited. Um,
Okay.
so protecting the environment requires that resources like land and water, air, and wildlife be held in common and private ownership. Be held in common
One more
and
time.
private ownership restricted. Protecting the environment requires that resources like land, water, air, and wildlife um, be held in common and private ownership restricted. So basically, no private ownership um, of environmental resources.
Mm,
I'm gonna do a light disagree because, like, I don't know, it's tricky.
yeah.
People need to conduct like trade and shit and create products, and you can't do that if it's all owned by an entity that has no motive to like. Because it's two sides to a coin. The profit motive is important because it's how you know the market works. There's supply and demand, and in order for supply to be or for demand to be met, supply has to be accessible with like
Yeah.
reasonable, at a reasonable level. So, but at the same time, regulation needs to exist. So I'm going to do a light disagree on that one. The profit motive stifles the innovations and behavioral changes required to protect the environment. Requiring innovation. Yep, I agree. Environmental advocates and social pressure are a more effective means of changing public behavior than government action. Um, light disagree. Subsidies for energy production should be abolished. Disagree. Energy pricing, allocation, and production are too important to be left to the market and should be controlled by the government. Uh, light agree. See, energy is just such a touchy subject because it's intimately linked with the environment.
One more time.
energy is such an intimate it's such a touchy subject because it's intimately linked with the environment. So for us to be able to monitor it without the profit motive interfering, then we need the government to do that in a sense. Um, well, it's a balance between the government being big enough to enforce regulation while not being so big and bloated that it's absorbing everything. But
Mm.
my and your picture of an ideal government is a lot different than what we have right now. You know,
Oh yeah.
so
Like my ideal government would be very big.
mine would be reasonably large enough to do its job. That's about it.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like, I'm not the
Uh,
type of person who's going to say that, like, no role for individual agency, but at the same time, I'm going to be very skeptical of it.
right. People who think they are entitled to keep what they earn are merely being selfish and should be forced to pay their fair share. Um, it's about taxes.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree. Slightly.
E-
Taxation is the price we pay for civilization is a valid statement. Yeah, I strongly agree with that. I strongly agree with that. Government budgets should
No,
be
I feel
balanced
that.
by curbing expenditure and not raising taxes. Uh, well,
This-
there's a whole
I'd
formula,
say,
right? There's if you want to like the traditional way that like Democrats and Republicans worked was if you were a Republican, you wanted to cut spending and cut taxes, or I think it no
mhm.
wait cut spending and or cut spending and raise taxes, I believe. And Democrats no it was Republicans wanted to cut spending and cut funding, and Democrats wanted to raise spending and raise funding. So those are consistent, right? You want to spend more, you have to bring in more. You want to spend less, you have to like bring in less. And if you're trying to reduce a deficit, then you have to spend less and you have to bring in more to balance it out, to make even things out.
Yeah.
But how it currently is just all right. We're just gonna keep doing the illogical thing
How
and
it currently works
spend a sh-
is that
spend a shit ton.
Republicans will cut taxes for the rich, but they'll also increase spending for the military.
Yeah, it's nuanced. So, but government budgets should be balanced by curbing expenditure. Yes, because to me that means that I strongly agree with that statement because I think that if the government has a problem and it's they messed up and they have to fix that, the people shouldn't be the ones to take the hit. So, because at this point the people aren't the ones that representative democracy, right? Like one senator represents 50,000 people. He can only reasonably it's that person's taking a huge responsibility. If they're messing up, then they have to take the hits, and it shouldn't be the people. Like that's the backwards view that I think is kind of what's wrong today. But anyway, people should be free to choose which products and services they wish to purchase, and not be forced to pay for something against their will. Yes. Well, then you got roads. God damn it! I was thinking like internet. Um, See, then you got like the argument of like toll booths.
And it's
I'm
like,
going to do a I'm
I
going to
mean,
do
we
a
already make.
light agree.
I'm actually, yeah, I feel that.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, like, there's legitimate cases for installing like toll roads and shit. It's for very specific reasons.
Monetary reasons or traffic flow
More
reasons?
that difficult for people to whatchamacallit, form or we've structured our country in a way that makes it really hard for people to get where they need to. Like, companies like General
Yeah,
Motors and shit lobbied against public transportation, public highways, etc. And so, nowadays, like, there's a push for people to drive less.
and take
Sorry
public
for the
transportation more.
the ums and stuff. It's the reverb.
No, it's fine. But you're saying that there's a push for public transportation now?
Well, I mean, it's been there for a while, but like,
I mean,
I
yeah.
definitely understand.
Yeah, I'm all for public transportation. I think it'd be improving our train system, modernizing it. We have a very big distance to cover, and cars are good in a sense,
Yeah.
like they're never gonna fully go away. But we should also have like viable alternative options, like the tube train that seems pretty. It seems to hit that good threshold of being cost effective and practical. Um, you know, so practical solutions to difficult problems. So like I wouldn't say we need to like rebuild our entire railway network because
Yeah,
that's
that's fine.
impractical and like people don't travel on all the railways anyway. It's kind of like the same argument as with campus buildings. Like we only use the classrooms for a short period of time, and for the rest of the time it's just an empty building that has to be, you know, kept in climate control and electricity running through it. It costs money,
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
reasonable
Yeah.
solutions. All right.
Yep, or
Free
do.
market banking with competition among banks and depository institutions of all types is preferable to a system controlled by a central bank. Light agree.
Yeah, that
Concentration of wealth is not a good thing. Uh, profits and losses should be socialized. Uh, light agree.
one is if people are going to be spreading a risk out in an economy, also assume some level of socialization of profits.
Okay. Yeah, I did a light agree on that. Individuals who engage in voluntary exchange should be free to use uh, as money as. Wait, what?
Oh yeah, that one's basically like, do you like cryptocurrency?
Oh, um, light agree.
Bitcoin nerd. I kid.
Inflationary monetary policies and legal tender laws should be abolished.
Nah,
I'm
it's
gonna,
complicated.
yeah, I'm gonna stay neutral on that. Money should be abolished.
Perfectly fair.
Uh, why? I'm gonna say no.
It's complicated.
Why would you
Basically
abolish money?
depends on basically because this isn't something I necessarily agree with, but the idea is that when you have currency that that you tie all your value to, basically it's the idea of abolishing private property.
Ah, well, I disagree with that. So, um, because
Yeah.
people have the right to like pursue their own desires and goals, and that's how they do it. So, I kind of agree with the idea that the best elements of socialism and capitalism should be mixed into a nice tasting drink, to put it aproposly. Um,
That I feel that.
individuals have the right to form corporations, cooperatives, and other types of entities based on voluntary association. Sure. Private ownership of the means of production should be abolished. Are you a communist? No.
Basically.
Um, Subsidies and bailouts
Abolish.
to business, business, labor, and other special interests should be abolished. I'm gonna do a light agree, light, because I think in some cases cushioning. If you study economics, when the government cushions the blow, it helps the overall economy and it hurts the people less.
Yeah,
So I might actually do a light disagree on that. So
that's fine.
public entities should be able to compete with private enterprises. Um, that's not really the point of public entities, though. So disagree
To make sure that everyone gets access to services.
with that one.
Oh, I'm
So
saying
like
I
when it
agree with
says,
you.
oh, okay. Employment and compensation agreements between employers and employees are private and should not be encumbered by social engineering. What the fuck do they mean by social engineering? Do they mean that the government should be able to protect unions? Is that what they mean?
It's complicated. Basically, it's the idea that if you have a group of people, if you have some form of social policy that pushes for some type of goals, then basically you want to be unencumbered by it. They would say something like, "Oh, saying that this business has to hire minorities, for example, is social engineering."
Oh, okay. My mind immediately went to the case
It's
with Google.
it's weird.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay neutral on that one, just because I don't fully understand it.
That's fine.
Private employers and employees should be required by law to bargain with each other through a labor union.
Yep,
Disagree.
that's fine. Yeah,
Lightly. Like, trade unions should obviously be able to exist to protect the workers, but like if the worker doesn't want to involve themselves in that, then sure, you can be a bitch to the company if you really want.
I feel that.
membership membership in a labor union should be a requirement for obtaining employment. Uh, light disagree.
A-okay?
Compulsory arbitration and obligation to bargain are necessary to ensure that bosses do not exploit their workers. Um, yeah, agree strongly. That's part of the union. That's part of what unions do. I realize. Um, provision of education should be socialized and made available free of charge.
Yeah, basically,
So
should public
education
schools
should.
exist?
Yes. Education is best provided by the free market, achieving greater. No, but like charter schools, they have their place, but they shouldn't be everything. You know, like
Yeah.
yeah. The education of children is the financial responsibility of the parents or guardians, not the government. Yeah, yeah, it's tricky. It takes a village, right? That's what Hillary says. I kind of agree with that in that case.
Famously said.
So I'm gonna say no.
That's fine.
I think that the government should be able to educate people. People should have a bare minimum for education. So if their parents don't give a shit, then they can at least still have a life.
Yeah.
Um, health insurance companies exploit the sick and dying to make a profit, and therefore should be regulated by the government. Yeah, universal health care is something that we should probably move towards. Individuals should be
Yeah,
free to
but
determine the level
it'll
of
take
health
a really
insurance that they
long
want.
time.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree. Everything is slow moving in history, except for when wars happen. Then quick changes happen, unfortunately. It's always
You're
a
not wrong.
revolution or a war. Yeah, so um, people just get impatient. Individuals should be free to determine the level of health insurance they want, if any. Uh, Light
Basically,
agree.
should we have universal healthcare?
Well, with that one, it's saying individuals should be free to determine the level of health insurance they want. So, like, hey, you're gonna get a baseline, like a baseline health insurance plan should be for what everyone wants, and then if you want more coverage, then it's such a fucking tricky question. Um, because
Yeah, that's why I like this
eh,
one more than I like political compass because it like actually requires thought.
yeah, it that's fair. Um, that's fair. Individuals should be free to determine the level of health insurance they want. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna disagree lightly. Healthcare should be provided by the free market. It can be, I guess.
Yeah, basically that
Not that
question
it should.
is, are you a libertarian?
I'm gonna say light disagree because I think that you should have the option to have healthcare that's not like under the government, but for people who can't afford it, they should be able to. There's like three things people should have in life: um, health, education, and a roof over their heads. So,
Whoa, easy there, Stalin.
yeah, right.
Guys,
Suicide and
like
euthanasia should be
forcing people to
illegal.
get healthcare is literally Stalin.
God damn it. Suicide and euthanasia should be illegal. Strongly disagree. See, that's where me and my old roommate Jacob disagreed. He thought that it
That's
should
right.
be illegal, and I'm like, why? It's the individual's choice, you know. It's their life. Um,
Yeah, I get
it's
that.
this is tricky because we live in an environment that puts rules on us, right? And we make the best of what we
Yeah.
can, but we ultimately live by the rules of our environment. So if the environment dictates that we have to behave in a certain way in regards to like how we govern ourselves, and that's freaking how we should do it. It's not hard. So, um, provision of healthcare should be socialized and made available free of charge. Agree. Not all individuals will take responsibility for planning their retirement. Therefore, an age pension should be provided. Um, you know, in my day-to-day experiences with people, not everyone thinks of retirement. Um, but I'm gonna do a light agree.
Perfectly acceptable.
Socialized welfare. Socialized welfare programs should be phased out and replaced with a private voluntary system based on insurance, charity, mutual aid. No. I mean, the church had their chance. They sold papal indulgences. That's what they
Yep.
did with their time. So,
Yeah, it was pretty fucked up.
most people will not voluntarily help the poor. Therefore, it is incumbent on the government to provide welfare services as to combat poverty. Light agree. Not saying that they can't. I'm not saying that the church can't help poor people, but shouldn't be just them alone.
Average.
It's
It
kind
won't
of
do a good
that's
job.
yeah. Um, I'm sure that if we had a religious person on, I'm sure they could cite a bunch of charitable organizations like the Knights of Columbus and other food banks um, that they run to help poor people. But again,
We don't live
they
in
might
that
have
type of
special
society.
interests. Yeah, and also we're not. They have special interests in who they help as well. So it's tricky. I'd rather have the most unbiased uh, organization as possible helping poor people.
Yeah,
So
and that's really tricky.
it is really tricky because humans are biased. So charity and
Yep.
civil society will weaken if government does not have the power to direct such activity. Light disagree.
I feel
In order
that.
to preserve global in order to preserve global security, the government needs to embrace foreign political alliances and act as a policeman for the world. Okay. We should be involved in global activities. We shouldn't be it's another fine line, you know.
Yeah, that's political
Another
questions.
yeah. I'm gonna do a light agree, but with reservations.
I feel
Service in the
that.
military should be compulsory. Disagree. Rights are not inalienable and can be suspended during times of war. Uh, Disagree. Although that's
Yep.
exactly what happened in World War II. So it's tricky.
Unfortunately.
Intelligence agencies should be obstructed from preserving security if they were subjected to oversight and transparency. I mean, yeah. So light agree. Government should not use secret classifications to keep from the public information that it should have. Light agree. But that's tricky because then with that kind of information, you have to know when it can be released. Because the government declassifies stuff that was classified years ago. Um, like they'll release it eventually, but like they said, for national security, like for the livelihood of everyone in that nation, you know. So
Yeah,
I disagree. Foreign
I feel
policy
that.
should keep a nation in a position of strength relative to other nations. Uh, no. We should all be going to. Our goal is to all be on one ball team at the end of the day, but that's not going to be for a long time.
Yeah.
Foreign policy should emphasize defense against attack from abroad and enhance the likelihood of peace by avoiding foreign entanglements. Agree. Lightly. Because you got to step in when you got to step in. Cough, cough, Adolf Hitler. Cough, cough. Cough, cough, Saddam Hussein. Because like I feel like that was probably justifiable
Saddam,
in a
though.
way. In a way, yeah.
Yeah,
Because his
still,
pattern of
Iraq
invading another
was.
country, his pattern of invading another country was very similar to Hitler's. Um, like, hey, I'm gonna take a little bite and I'm just gonna keep going. And that was the whole argument against democracies, is they were too weak on dictators that would start doing that shit. So I would have to, for that one, I'm gonna do neutral. Okay. Foreign intervention, including military and economic aid, are necessary for preserving the security of the nation. Eh, depends. If it's like a next door neighbor, then sure. But if it's like abroad and you have no business being there, I'm gonna say neutral. Anything with war gets really tricky, unfortunately. All people have the right to resist tyranny and defend themselves and their rights. Sure. Impediments to free trade should be abolished. Light disagree. Political freedom and escape from tyranny demand that individuals not the unreasonably constrained in the crossing of borders. Light agree. Trade should be regulated by the government. Light agree. Economic freedom demands the unrestricted movement of humans as well as financial capital across national borders. Disagree. All people are born with an inherent right to their life. Okay, agree. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Obviously agree. Some rights can impose an obligation upon others to fulfill that right. No. Government should neither
Interesting.
deny nor abridge human rights based upon biological characteristics or personal preferences. Yes. If I'm understanding that question right. Government should neither deny nor abridge human rights. That should never happen. So yeah, okay. Members of private organizations can set standards of association, and individuals are free to respond with ostracism or boycotts. Um, yeah, agree. Parents or other guardians have the right to raise their children according to their own standards and beliefs. Sure. Parents should be able to abuse and neglect their children. No. Without the
Whoa,
state,
these
there
are
should
very
be.
libertarian.
With that. Wait, what was that?
Oh, I'm making fun
How
of
was I libertarian on
libertarians.
that? Oh. I'm saying the parents should not
Oh,
be
I
able
know,
to
I know.
abuse and neglect their children. That would not
Libertarian.
be a libertarian statement. That would be a government interventionist
Yep.
statement.
Statist.
Statist cook. Without the state, there
I'm
would be
kidding.
chaos and disorder. Agree. Wasn't that John Locke's whole shtick?
Yeah,
In the Leviathan, the concept of the Leviathan and how the government is made up of a bunch of different people giving up part of their
that's
rights so
more
they can obtain
Hobbes.
security. Yeah, I guess. I kind of mix up the old philosophers a bit. Um, it is the right of every individual to resist tyranny and abolish it, replacing it with a system that respects individual rights. Agree. Light agree, mind you.
It's
The
fine.
state should be abolished. No.
No.
All right. I am a. I'm spec'd as a liberal in this one. I'm a negative 17 economic, negative 54 cultural. Um,
So basically, you're like left-leaning libertarian.
yeah. You support a balance of both economic freedom and restriction alongside light restrictions on cultural freedom. You oppose economic deregulation and any reduction in taxes. Alright, I guess I'll share that to my Twitter. But, um, yeah, see, a little bit of a discrepancy between this one and the one about
Yeah,
from Pew Research.
yeah.
But
It's subjective.
pretty much. All right, I'm not really sure. Let's see what we're looking at for time. Um, looks like we've been going for an hour about.
Give or take, yeah.
Uh, so I guess we can talk about a few things about the news. Mainly the Greitens
That
indictment
makes
and the
sense.
Rick Gates investigation. So I guess we'll start with
Yeah.
Greitens, since that was a big issue. Now, you already mentioned this earlier, but what he did was pretty messed up. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't know if
So
that is going to warrant an impeachment.
what bothers me isn't so much the he did was fucking awful. What really gets to me is that I think that there is a large segment of the population of Missouri, like, what'll happen is people will just say, "Oh, well, it's fake news," and then they'll just ignore it. And like, unless he gets indicted, and even if he does get indicted, and it's that's genuinely horrifying.
Yeah, I read a tweet from TJ recently about how like the right basically frames news is that, hey, do I agree with this news? It's fake news. And that was actually one of the points um, in the doc that I shared with you, is that fake news is news you want to dismiss versus non-credible sources. Like there's a point when people say fake news. It's like, hey, fake news is news that's bullshit and it's spreading misinformation and slandering someone. And then there's, hey, it's the fake news where it's news I don't want to believe because I am trying to remain willfully ignorant. You know?
Yeah, and it sucks because how do you talk to people when there's an abundant amount of that stuff? You know, like how do you have a functional democracy when nobody agrees what's even true?
the truth gets out, the truth is powerful, um, and unless people believe what they want to believe ultimately, but the truth should prevail in the end, and there should be systems in place that ensure that that truth is retained, basically. So he should be indicted if this is all proven to be the case, and that's why our court system exists, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't want the populist masses deciding court cases with evidence and such. So
Yep. Gotta have a court system that functions fairly. The thing that's wild to me is that like there will be people who, even after it's like shown in a court of law that Greitens, eh, assuming he is guilty, there will be people who, he will be shown guilty in a court of law, plead guilty to it, but then all he has to do is go on Facebook, deny it, and people will still like believe him by the thousands.
yeah, those are usually the
And
sycophants
that's
that
just
just
fucking wild to
plug
me.
their ears. I mean, there's always going to be people like that with everything. Um, the key is to look at the actual results of what happened. Like, hey, did did the results of this court case match what he did wrong? If that's true, then hey, our democracy worked. What people think is kind of beside the point in that case, you know, because eventually the truth wins.
Eh,
So,
I guess what I'm saying is, I think that in Missouri, like, Greitens will basically be able to pull off what Roy Moore wasn't able to do. Like, Roy Moore was credibly accused by like multiple women of like touching them inappropriately and molesting them when they were children, and he almost got 50% of the vote. Like, it was razor thin margins. What happened in
oh,
Missouri
in
is that,
Georgia,
Greitens could admit to, having had an affair while his wife was pregnant and, doing all of these horrible things, except for the blackmailing part, which was, the explicitly thing. And people would still vote for him by like the hundreds of thousands.
right? Yeah, yeah. Think with that election, was that news released like after people had started voting, or was it before people had started voting?
Before people had started voting. Like the news came out and like he almost won 50% of the vote, but he lost.
That's the thing is that's another question statistically is how many people actually watch the news and how many people are like completely detached and just vote the same box every time, you know? Because there's
Yeah,
that like
I
there's
feel
someone
that.
who's just ignorant and just and that's I still it's still on that I still say that that's still on the voter if they're just checking the same box every time they go into the voting booth and don't think about it. But again, part of the goal of democracy is that the population becomes more and more educated. So there should be this incentive for people to, have access to knowledge and such. But if people want to actively avoid that knowledge, then
Yeah.
it's Joe. It's a big game, and we really don't have too much say in it, but we can commentate the fuck out of it. That's how I view it right now.
I feel that.
It's not exactly a positive view. Like I get frustrated with it as well. That is ridiculous that he got that many votes just because either so with the case in Georgia, is that the state we're talking about with this
That was
individual you're
Alabama.
talking about? Alabama. Um,
It was
it's
Alabama.
either hey, this individual got 50% of the vote and people knew about what happened and still voted for him anyway, which makes people disgusting. Or people went in and were not aware because they don't watch the news and they just check the same box every time and they're old people.
Oh
They
no, like
vote
a
that
lot of people,
way.
like this was nationwide news, and like people just didn't believe the accusations. And like honestly, like just things he said before that easily should have disqualified him. Like he said that one of the like after 1965 when people started introducing a bunch of new rights, there were a lot of really big new problems that showed up in society. So like closest thing, like the biggest new right I could think that was introduced in 1965 or 1964 was the Civil Rights Act. So Or, the First Amendment only applies to Christians and stuff. Fucked up, but he still received almost 50% of the vote because people are shit.
Yeah. All right, I got a page pulled up on Facebook here.
Ooh.
Let's see what it's got to say. Missouri Republican Party. Here's our full statement of the recent news. Governor Greitens. Kim Gardner has received more than $200,000 from the George Soros groups, said Sam Cooper. Missourians should see this for what it is, a political hit job. The law has never been prosecuted in this way, and it is safe to say that if Eric Greitens wasn't governor, it wouldn't have been this time either. We have a progressive anti-law enforcement Democrat wanting to single-handedly oust a law and order governor. Law and order, that's a word that was said by Trump. We look forward to a bipartisan committee of legislators elected by people across Missouri to find out what's really going on. Ensuring St. Louis liberals aren't controlling the future of our state. Oh my god. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
1 second.
I mean, I understand that like the cities are blue, but talk about divide and conquer with the people, huh?
1 second.
I mean, this only got 326 upvotes, but you know,
likes and stuff. Yeah. Oh God. So, George Soros. I can't believe that the response to a guy admitting that he had an affair on his wife while she was pregnant, and then being arrested for having blackmailed the mistress. He admitted to all of that except for the blackmail bit. I believe that the response to that is, "My George Soros." Jesus fucking Christ. It's like, for having like received millions of dollars from political action committees. It's only George Soros trying to undermine democracy when like liberals do it. And yeah, no, get money out of politics, but fucking really? Greitens has received way more money, and like he even admitted to like 80% of all the horrible shit. But apparently it's a witch hunt because, he didn't admit to doing the thing that was illegal.
gotta love it.
The worst part is, like,
Gotta love it.
they'll believe that. It's like, she received money. Every politician has received money.
Yep. Yep. It's playing off a common string that people don't often really look into.
And then people will still support this because partisanship.
Yeah. Systematic change needs to happen. I agree.
Yep.
I agree. But it has to be done in a way that doesn't incite a freaking revolution or something crazy.
That's good. I don't know. See, I'm kind of.
Oh my gosh, his picture.
The mugshot.
No, it's him and his family.
Oh God.
And there's not many tweets about it.
Oh God, his mugshot was just fucking priceless. Like he's got Forrest Whitaker eye.
Yeah, it's a politics kind of. So his banner picture is him with a crowd, and the first banner you can see is "Women for Greitens," and it's like,
Oh fucking God! So he basically says, "I made a personal mistake before I was governor, and I didn't commit a crime." It gets 13,000 likes. The top comment is, "I'm still voting for you. Your private business is between you and your wife."
I mean, that's true, but like,
God.
The blackmailing, that's kind of illegal. Like, the taking a picture of someone, that's kind of illegal.
And the worst part is, like, the guy is Jewish and stuff, but he ran on this platform of, "I'm a conservative and I have religious values." And then and then he just goes and does something that's so blatantly immoral. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
They'll still vote for him because he's a Republican now, and everything is fucking stupid. And you,
I'm gonna see
I
if
don't
I can
know.
find
This is why I've
any
sort of
case details. Um, so so let's go to the New York Times because I think that most people can agree that that's pretty, neutral. Granted, this was 2 days
eh,
ago.
but it's the failing New York Times.
Good lord.
Sorry,
No, I can understand your
okay.
frustration because I was reading some of the comments on that Facebook post and I was just like, uh. So I can understand your frustration with people being ridiculous. That's kind of why politics is a turnoff for me
Yeah,
sometimes. Um,
it's one of those things where, the more I realize just how fucking bankrupt people are in terms of morality, the less I support it in general.
what morality?
And it's frustrating because, like, oh,
Wait, you don't support morality, or
huh?
what do you mean by what you just said?
So
Like people are.
I think in nowadays the GOP is much worse than the Democrats, but I don't think that the Democrats are good. And so it's basically a choice between like very shitty and like slightly shitty. Don't like the choices that we have. And I realize that it's the inevitable like results of living in a society where big money will control, basically the way that society functions, and it'll weaponize institutions like religion and social issues and racism and all that stuff in order to
I mean,
further
they're
its own
already
end
been.
goals.
That's kind of what they've used
And,
abortion as for the past. And that's currently
yeah,
what they're using
and
gun
so,
rights as a divisive issue that distracts people from the bigger issues at hand,
yeah,
unfortunately.
and it's what happens when you live in a society that's, dictated by the demands of capitalism.
It's tricky
Yeah,
because
it is.
money is not to blame per se. Like it's how we it's how we exchange goods, and it's a hell of a lot better than bartering. Um,
Yeah,
so you can't just
I
blame the
feel that.
dollar. You have to blame uh, an unfair skewing of how power is in society. And honestly, if you look at history, it's only gotten better with time. Like it used to just be, hey, I'm the king. All these fucking serfs are gonna work on my farms, or they'll die. And now it's, hey, you live in the lower middle class, you get a house, you get basic amenities, and even though it might be like really tough, you still get to like kind of have some freedom. So,
Mm,
and these are worst case arguments, of course. But bottom line to what I just said is that things have gotten better over time, and hopefully that trend continues as it seems to be doing. But humanity, we've only been around for like 2,000 years, Joe. We have moved very quickly. If you look at how much our population expanded, it was only like 200 years ago that we had like we plateaued for most of our history, right? And now we're dealing with this huge
yeah.
influx of people, and it's just humanity dealing with growing pains. And I think that'll be an issue for quite a while, probably. Hopefully, like maybe in 2500, maybe things will be more ideal. It's a long way off, but who knows? Um, have you heard of the Great Filter concept?
It sounds familiar.
So the Great Filter is this idea in space, and I guess astronomy that uh, there's civilizations face successive steps, and you can view the steps in civilization as like a staircase, and every jump to the next staircase is a filter that we have to make it over. And the argument is that um, the reason we haven't seen other alien species, like, hey, we're the only ones to make it past this filter. And I think for for the human race, the next filter is getting to the stage where we function as a single planet. Um, Michio Kaku talked about this too, about how like the next steps is, hey, we need like a universal communication system. That's the internet. It's the first step. We need a universal language, English, kind of the next step, and eventually a single functioning economy with one currency and one. And people are afraid of one world government because of basically what special interests can glean from it and hurt other people with. So the biggest problem, Joe, I think, is just
I feel
the
that.
human ego. Sorry if I got kind of deep there, but
No, it's fine. It's true. Like, we'll eventually have to reckon with the fact that these artificial barriers, like nation states, are just that. They're artificial. And, what do you do to, deal with that?
right. And it's kind of an answer we all have to collectively answer.
Yeah,
So,
and it'll be a very
and we disagree on how to answer it, and that disagreement comes through in what we're seeing right now. So,
Yep. We live in
so
interesting
according to this
times.
website, yes, I agree. Yeah, he acknowledged having an extramarital affair, but denied reports he blackmailed the woman or took nude photos without permission. A St. Louis television station that aired a report claims that Mr. Greitens, a married father of two, took a compromising photograph of a woman with whom he was having an affair, and then threatened her with retribution if she. So it was St. Louis television station. Okay.
Yeah, in the Central West End, which is literally like 10 minutes from our high school.
Yep.
I mean, it's where we went after, we finished up that one final exam and then just sort of hung out with our teacher. Like, it's literally right around there.
Yeah. Yeah. Shit. What was that restaurant? What kind of food was it? Was it
Ice
like?
cream.
Was it ice cream? I just remember the architecture was really nice.
I just remember it raining.
It was also raining. Yep. It was a good time though.
It was a good day, though. Yeah, definitely. In a way, I kind of miss it, when things were just so much simpler.
Yeah, things were definitely a lot less complicated. Um, but I remember we also used to like read a series of books. Like I think for the what was the one about the Soviet peasant?
Life in the Day of Ivan Denisovich.
Yep, and he brought in a bunch of Russian
Good.
snacks. That was
It was
pretty
a good
cool.
book.
He did that with every book we read, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, like
Nothing
for
could beat
Storm of Steel, he
the
brought in
Storm
like
of Steel. Just because he brought
yeah,
in fucking pretzels. That was legit.
yeah,
And not like the shitty, like little snack pretzels, but like actual fucking pretzels.
actual soft
God, I
pretzels that
miss that.
tasted decently.
It's
Yep.
Gus's pretzels too. They are really, really fucking famous around those parts.
Yeah, Gus's is prime pretzel. If I do say so myself.
True. I've actually been trying to like figure out where all like the really good food hangouts are around Minneapolis and stuff, just because, it's a total foodie. So whenever I'm, in a new area, I've just sort of got to always find it.
Yeah, we had a segment on here a while ago called the what was it called? It was like a food segment where we would go and like interview like or like review food places that were unique or
Oh
like had a
yeah, I
cultural.
remember that. That went
Yeah.
nowhere. Oh
I,
well.
I mean, I think it was a good idea. Definitely bring it back.
Yeah,
I
it could be
actually kind of
fun.
like it because it's in the name of our podcast. It's part of the culture. So um, that was actually kind of cool. I think we did one restaurant, and it was like a
Cajun Place.
Louis, yeah, Louisiana style restaurant. I forget what
Yeah,
episode, but I think it's in season one. But
ago.
yeah, if we did that now,
It's fine
Kirksville,
though.
where I'm at, has like nothing really. Uh, there's like some knockoff Mongolian and Chinese places, and that's
Oh,
about it.
Kirksville.
Yeah, it's a place in Missouri. that exists. So,
Oh, fun fact. Apparently, the web server for one of the largest neo-Nazi websites in the U.S. is centered in Kirksville.
great. Yeah, I mean,
Fun
the
fact.
the reason for that, I imagine, is because that's where eugenics was. This is where eugenics was founded in
Yeah.
Kirksville. So that's probably why.
Like
Um,
it's funny. Like I've actually been looking at maps of like various hate groups, and there's a surprising concentration of them in the U.S.
oh yeah, there's a whole map. You can find.
Hate
You
map,
can.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
fucking wild.
Actually,
Thing
maybe
is,
we can.
like the number of like members of the Ku Klux Klan have been like declining, but like members in like explicitly neo-Nazi groups have sort of been increasing. Oh
Oh
God,
my God.
it's oh my.
Well, anyway, maybe in the future we can bring back that portion of the show. Um, if you'd want to like, we could like switch off every month or something and find a place
That could be
around where we
fun.
are.
I'd appreciate that.
All right. Well, I think that's all I got for today. So we can end the show here. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Uh, please like and subscribe to this channel for more content like this. Comment on this video if you have any opinions on the news or your political compass test. Uh, and anything else, Joe?
No, that should do it. That
All
should
right.
do it.
See y'all later. Ciao.